Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Patmos, and I have a video for you today. As many of you, I am sure, are fascinated by the story of Jeffrey Epstein and his mysterious death in prison. I have done a little bit of research on this, and all of my findings are in the text below. And what I basically looked at was the timeline of Epstein and Trump's relationship from the very beginning to until Epstein's death in light of the legal activities around Epstein. And it really paints a fascinating picture. And finally, I will opine as a licensed physician about whether or not Epstein's death was due to hanging or due to strangulation, manual strangulation. So, first of all, here's what the evidence shows conclusively and without question. Trump and Epstein were very, very close and very good friends for a long period of time. From the late night, by Trump's own admission, from the late 1980s throughout the 1990s and into the mid 2000s, Trump and Epstein were seen together frolicking and partying all over the place in Palm Beach, in New York, many locations, at a lot of these high profile social events and parties. There are numerous photographs and videos showing them together having a great time, having drinks, and looking at girls. So there's no question that Trump and Epstein were very close for a long period of time. In addition, Trump was also obviously very close to Ghislaine Maxwell, because throughout the 1990s, there are now confirmed flight logs showing Trump having flown on Epstein's plane with Maxwell at least 8 times and possibly more during the 1990s. Now, it has to be borne in mind that this was the time during the 1990s and all this partying going on that Epstein and Maxwell were involved in a sex trafficking operation. Trump was very closely associated with them during that period of time. In 2002, Trump said in an interview with, I believe, the New Yorker magazine, that he has known Jeffrey Epstein for 15 years and that he thinks he's a terrific guy and that he, quote, loves beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. That was a direct quote from Donald Trump. Epstein, in 2002, Epstein is a terrific guy who loves beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. This was what Donald Trump said. In 2004, in late 2004 or so, a complaint was filed by the parents of a 14-year-old girl against Jeffrey Epstein, alleging that she had been molested at Epstein's home in Palm Beach. The local Palm Beach law enforcement police started an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and developed about 30 to 40 more instances of sexual molestation of minors at Epstein's home. This was around 2004. According to Donald Trump, sometime around that time, late 2004 or early 2005, Trump says, and there's very scanty evidence to support this, but he says he called Long Beach police and said everybody knows what Epstein is up to, basically corroborating the allegations and stating that everybody in Palm Beach knows what Epstein does. Very interesting. Well, Epstein was the local Palm Beach police developed the investigation, and then it was taken over abruptly by federal prosecutors, federal law enforcement, who took the case away from the local Palm Beach folks and negotiated a settlement with Epstein that was really a slap on the wrist. It was pretty much a sweetheart deal. All Epstein had to do was be a registered sex offender and agree to like house arrest at night in a low security facility, correctional facility, and released during the day to go about his business. Presumably, he had to wear an ankle bracelet or so otherwise be tracked, and he couldn't leave the country and so forth. Pretty much a sweetheart deal, considering what the charges were and how he got such a great deal from federal law enforcement in 2005 and 2000, between 2005 and 2008, is still a matter of a lot of interest. Well, after that, Epstein was a convicted sex offender and continued to do whatever he continued to do until the next shoe to drop was in 2019, when Trump was in his first term, when suddenly Epstein was rearrested by federal authorities and brought to jail. And this was in July 2019. He was denied bail and kept in jail. A few days later, he was said to have suffered injuries in jail, which were said to be indicative of a suicide attempt, but the injuries were never described. And a few weeks later, he was taken off of suicide watch. And in August, 1 month after being arrested, and oh, by the way, this arrest by federal authorities was for criminal activity during the time of 2002 to 2005. You remember that was the time when Trump said he knew Epstein and that he was a terrific guy. That was the time period that the federal investigators were looking at. Well, in August 2019, just a month or so after being arrested, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. And amazingly, the security cameras didn't work. The two security guards who were on duty that night, both fell asleep. Epstein was left unattended and was found unresponsive in his jail cell, brought to the local hospital where he was pronounced dead. An official finding was that he had committed suicide, that he allegedly hung himself with a bed sheet from his bed. And that was what the determination was. The family, the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, retained Dr. Michael Baden, who is a very well known, probably the most famous forensic pathologist in the country today, to offer his opinion. And he reviewed the autopsy and concluded, no, this was not a hanging with a sheet. This was manual strangulation. And here's why Dr. Baden said that. Because Epstein had multiple fractures in his neck. He had fractured the hyoid bone, and he had also fractured the thyroid cartilage, that's your Adam's apple, and the cricoid cartilages. So he had multiple fractures of bone and cartilage in his neck. And Dr. Baden concluded that this was not likely associated with a hanging. This was more likely strangulation by someone with their hands. I agree with Dr. Baden. I'm an internal medicine physician with 45 years experience, licensed in 14 states, and I attended many autopsies as a medical student. And let me tell you why Dr. Baden is right. It is true that a very elderly person with osteoporosis and really thin bones and thin cartilage could sustain fracture of those structures by hanging. It would require dropping them from a distance with a rope and enough force at the bottom of the drop to fracture the neck. Epstein wasn't that old. He was 65 when he died. He was a pretty fit appearing guy, and he hung himself with a bed sheet, allegedly, from the height of a bed. That would not be enough of a distance and a fall to fracture those structures. So, in my opinion, as a licensed physician, I agree with Dr. Baden, my colleague. I believe that Epstein died by strangulation. I think it's much more likely the case that he died by strangulation. And it raises some fascinating questions. Obviously, Epstein was involved in some, probably the most notorious, nefarious sex trafficking operation in history, involving hundreds, perhaps thousands of minors. And the investigation of this has been really stifled and blunted. It's not been a proper investigation. Even now, we can't get release of all of the documents related to the Epstein matter. Epstein's storage units have never been investigated. His ranch in New Mexico was never investigated. There's something preventing a thorough investigation of Epstein and a release of the information that we have. But one thing you can, putting this all in perspective, yeah, I find it fascinating that in 2002, Trump thought he was a great guy. And it wasn't until after Epstein got caught the first time that Trump started to distance himself from Epstein. He says that he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago sometime around 2007. Well, that was apparently after police began investigating Epstein in around late 2004, early 2005. So here's here's a little speculation on my part. Everything I've told you thus far is fact, and I will state that it is my opinion, professional medical opinion, that Epstein died by strangulation. But here's where I'm going to speculate a little bit. Epstein conducted this sex trafficking operation with Maxwell, who, by the way, was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Epstein conducted this sex trafficking operation for a long period of time and obviously had lots and lots of high profile men that he was involved with. We know because a dozen of them have already been arrested, charged, and removed from positions of power, such as CEO positions and board positions all around the world. So we know Epstein had a lot of damaging information about a lot of people, including he must have known a lot about Donald Trump because, after all, they were apparently best friends for something like 20 years. So Epstein was sitting in prison with these very serious federal charges and a ton of information that he could use to implicate others. Epstein was the perfect person to flip. For those of you who may remember The Sopranos, there's a problem when someone who has information about criminal activity of others is put in a position where they can either go to prison for the rest of their lives or get a sweetheart deal if they just flip and implicate someone else. It is pretty clear that Epstein could have flipped and could have taken down a lot of people, but he never got that chance because he died right away in jail before he had an opportunity to flip and turn anyone and implicate anyone else. So I think that, some people would refer this as a conspiracy theory. I don't think so. I think this is logic based upon a timeline, based upon forensic evidence, and based upon basic legal facts and timing of the relationship with Trump and when the legal affairs started. I think it is very interesting that Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019 within a month of being arrested when he could have flipped and taken a lot of people down with him. I think Epstein was murdered. What do you think?